hearty welcome to one and all. This is episode 149 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for joining me here on this Wednesday late afternoon into early evening in New York. But if you check out this episode on the YouTube channel or enjoying the content but haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you're joining me on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. So today will be the 14th entry in our continuing series of the best movie you've never seen. And this is another one that some boomers and some Gen Xers will have seen, and maybe the occasional elder millennial if they watched with a parent or grandparent or something. But it's another movie that is not nearly as widely known and widely renowned as I believe it should be. The movie in question is Phil Alden Robinson, also did Field of Dreams for you sports fans. Phil Alden Robinson's 1992 comedy crime thriller, I guess would be caper film, would be a good way to put it. It kind of straddles numerous genres. And the movie is called Sneakers. And the title has nothing to do with footwear. This is not, the movie Air before Air. Sneakers meaning people who sneak around, do sneaky shit. In this case, it's a team of security experts who we realize would have to be considered early phase hackers because they're using early 1990s tech to try to break into company security systems. This is what they do for a living. And the gang of sneakers, great actors all, is led by Robert Redford. And I feel like this would have to be considered his last conventional leading man role, where he's the star who, well, in this case, he's already gotten the girl, but then he tries to get her again. But Redford was, I think he was 55 at the time of filming. Still looked great, still moved around like an athlete in his 20s. And his charm, his command of the screen helps to make the movie. It's yet another great movie star performance from Redford in this case, who was not known as a great actor. But his team is made up of Oscar winner Sidney Poitier, Oscar nominee Dan Aykroyd, Oscar nominee David Strathairn, Oscar nominee Mary McDonnell, Oscar nominee River Phoenix. And a character who goes from friend to foe and possibly back again, Sir Ben Kingsley, Oscar winner. I mean, this movie is a who's who of great film performers, people who mastered the medium and learned how to relate to the audience, to the film audience, as opposed to, not that there's anything wrong with stage performers going on screen, but it is a different medium. And each of the people on Redford's team, and obviously Sir Ben, they're just home run hitters. So the setup for this movie is very interesting. The movie takes us back to the late 1960s, to the very, very early days of computers and computing, and the idea that you could actually somehow get into a computer and fuck around and maybe find out, or maybe you'll fuck around and they'll find out. So characters who are supposed to be Robert Redford and Sir Ben are, I believe they're Harvard students. They're both presented as quite brilliant. It's a cold, snowy night, and they're attempting to break into what should be heavily guarded, but again, what was internet security? What was computer security in the late 60s? I don't know. Was it even a thing? Well, they break into a very serious government computer. And this is about 15 years before Matthew Broderick pulled the same shtick in the movie War Games and nearly destroyed the entire planet. That's a story for another day. But the two of them, Martin Bishop and his friend, his name is Cosmo, he goes by. I forgot what his real name is. He goes by Cosmo. They managed to break into a very serious mainframe, government mainframe. And they're about to do some very illegal shit. But they are kind of, I guess you would call them reactionaries or revolutionaries in this instance, where they're not necessarily trying to steal, they're just trying to fuck shit up. So the opposite of the security expert that Martin Bishop is the name of Redford's character, that he will be in the present day of the movie, early 1990s. He's doing the opposite. He's not saying, hey, there's a way into this system, we better warn them. This is, we're into this system, fuck them all. So the two guys are about to engage in this unbelievably illegal activity, and it's late, they're hungry, and they kind of draw straws, and the person who loses, and there's no Uber Eats, there's no Grubhub in the late 1960s. Doesn't matter if it's snowing, you're not going to call up and somebody's going to deliver it. You can go out and get the food yourself. So Martin, they got an actor who kind of vaguely looks like Robert Redford a little bit. They didn't get the person who was supposed to be Ben Kingsley that doesn't remotely look like him, but what are you going to do? So Martin Bishop gets the short straw and he goes off to get the food. And when he returns, there's a million police cars, FBI, and his buddy gets arrested. And we don't know what happens to that end of the story. We don't know. Suddenly it's 1992. And Redford is leading this team of specialists, security experts, and we don't know what happened to Sir Ben. Where did he go? Is he still in prison 25 years later? We don't know. But the story goes forth with Redford and his team, and all of the actors are so good. Sidney Poitier plays a retired CIA agent who we don't really know for about 80%, maybe 90% of the film why he's retired. We suspect something happens. Dan Aykroyd plays a paranoid conspiracy theorist who may not be actually a paranoid conspiracy theorist. He may be a very smart guy who is telling truths that we don't want to hear. It's one of those, you're supposed to say, I don't know about this guy. I kind of like what he's saying, but I think he's fucking crazy. And unfortunate, the late great River Phoenix, Joaquin's older brother, this was one of his last movies. He's terrific in this film. And Mary McDonnell was, in this year of 1992, she starred in a John Sayles film. That's someone I'm going to have to get into on the channel. Boy, did he make some great movies. She starred in a John Sayles film, Passion Fish, which was released right around the same time as Sneakers. And she actually got an Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. And I remember there was a lot of buzz at the time because that particular year was not really a great year for women's parts as far as challenging roles. And Mary McDonnell in Passion Fish fucking kills it. And if you Google that movie, you will see that her hairstyle and her character is a very spoiled, rich soap opera star who came from money to begin with and goes home to Louisiana. And she has a terrible attitude. She doesn't get along with anybody. She's the first Karen. Let's put it that way. She has the Karen haircut and the awful attitude. And man, Mary McDonnell just crushes that part. It's a great movie. It seems slow and meditative and melancholy, but it really sings. Oh, and David Strathairn, who plays a character called Whistler in this movie, he's one of her co-stars in Passion Fish. So it's funny, I didn't think of that until just now. But that's the group that Redford is working with. And he gets contacted, Redford's character, by two men who work for the NSA. And basically, the setup is that someone is working on a decoder. They're working on a decoder, a decryption device. And this is 1991, 92. This film was shot in late 91. And they were already talking about stuff that they're fighting about now. What should be legal? What should be illegal? What sort of decryption should never exist, should not be allowed in any way because of the trillions of dollars in damage and potential. I mean, we saw it in the Die Hard movie with Timothy Olyphant, where he hits a couple of buttons and all of a sudden, none of the traffic lights in the entire United States work. Well, that doesn't sound so bad. Okay, you want to go drive when there are no traffic lights? You'd be my guest. So we're talking almost extinction level fuckery in this movie. And Redford has said, look, you're the kind of guy, we know that you can figure out what's going on. We need you to find this black box. We need you to find this decoder. And Smiling Bob says something like, why the fuck should I help you? What the hell do you want with me? He said, well, your name's not really Martin Bishop, is it? You ever wonder what happened to your friend Cosmo? These guys have tracked him down. He's seemingly been living above board, but he hasn't been, because he's on the run, and he's been on the run since that incident when they were at the Ivy League school, which, as I said, I think is Harvard. So he can't turn them down, because they could just arrest him right now. And they have information on all of his team members that they could all be in a lot of hot water too. So they're pretty much coerced into helping the NSA steal this black box, this magic decoder ring, which is more or less what it is, that if you have this thing and you have the means to use it, you can do anything you want. You know? Anybody want to know who killed Kennedy? Yeah, not really that into it. Okay. Anybody want to take an around the world cruise and have 10 million in their bank account? Well, that sounds pretty good. Don't touch that. It's kind of stuff that goes on in this movie. So the film has a lot of thriller elements, and it's strange because it's set up like a caper film, like a Ocean's 11 kind of a movie. When I say caper film, that's what I'm referring to. But it's almost a reverse caper, because they're trying to do something not for themselves. Well, they're trying to do it for themselves, but they're trying to do it because they're hired against their will to do a job. So if anything, the caper is coming from the NSA. We need you guys to steal this, or else. A lot of very serious things happen. There are some dastardly villains on display here. Beautiful cinematography and some very good effects work that you're not expecting. The kinds of mechanical effects that I prefer to green screen or CGI. This is not a CGI kind of movie, but there's some really solid stunt work and some good use of the technology of that era within this film. And it shouldn't be funny, but Redford has such an easy charm, and he has such good chemistry with Mary McDonnell. She plays a woman who really would just as soon never see him again. But he has a way, and he is such a charming and beguiling actor that the film feels more lighthearted than it actually is. And this is another thing where casting is so important, because if you go with a different actor of that stature, of that day, reboot The Matrix. You'll see where I'm going with this. Reboot The Matrix and cast Robert Redford as Colonel Nathan Jessup in A Few Good Men, and cast Jack Nicholson as Martin Bishop in Sneakers. Now, Jack can do comedy. We've seen it. He can be screamingly funny, literally. And we've seen Redford play serious. Redford could have played Colonel Nathan Jessup in A Few Good Men, and Nicholson would have had a fucking blast in Sneakers. But neither movie would work nearly as well if that had been the case. Because I feel like an actor like Nicholson, Jack had a tendency to overact in the 80s and 90s. And I don't believe he overacts in A Few Good Men. I think it's exactly perfect for his character, that you can't handle the truth. We've seen him. It's set up. This is a guy with a volcanic temper. Don't fuck with him. That he's going to dress down even colleagues whom he respects if they get on his nerves. It's perfect. Redford could not pull off You Can't Handle the Truth. It's just not his way. He's not that kind of an actor. He's a more interior type of an actor than Jack. So Redford, just by virtue of his quite formidable screen presence, the movie feels lighter than it otherwise would. And it's important because clearly they want us to not every minute be like suspense thriller territory, even though there's a lot of suspense and a lot of thriller elements and action elements and a lot of what the fuck is going on elements. So it's another film that straddles multiple genres, and I'm not going to criticize anybody who decides to call it a comedy thriller, because there are enough laughs. Joaquin Phoenix is very funny. Dan Aykroyd is a riot. And Sidney Poitier, because his character is the most hard-bitten of the bunch, he gets laughs. And Redford is just the smile. There are moments where all he has to do is smile and the audience laughs. So I teased that Ben Kingsley is in this. And it's weird how these things work out in Hollywood, because he doesn't really show up until the final third of the film. But his character kind of haunts the proceedings. And we have a feeling that somehow he's going to be connected to this. And of course he is. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to have him in the cast. But a movie I've also talked about on the channel, Dave, which came out the following year. I mean, Ben Kingsley was working like crazy during this, and big movies, not where he could do a couple of days and then they put his, he put his name on the VHS box. He had a huge role in Bugsy, which came out towards the end of 1991. He has a big role here in Sneakers, shows up, as I say, towards the end of the film. And then in 93, in Dave, his character doesn't show up until there's literally less than 20 minutes left in the movie. He plays the vice president, but we see his name in the credits. I mean, if you're the kind of person like me, you go the whole movie saying, well, where the fuck is Ben Kingsley? Oh, here he is. Where is he? And he did Searching for Bobby Fischer. Those are all big movies and all great movies. And Kingsley brings it each time with slightly different vocal inflections, a different look physically. He's just one of those. He's an amazing actor. I mean, remember him in Iron Man 3? He was fucking screaming that movie. Oh yeah, he's the Mandarin. He's not the Mandarin. He's a fucking actor. Like literally, figuratively, he's an actor. So there are, as I say, a lot of plot twists in this story. I'm not going to spoil any of them. But unlike the way I described a movie like The Natural and Indecent Proposal, it's funny, it's like Robert Redford the last couple of weeks on the channel. But Redford is a major figure in movies from the production angle, the Sundance Film Festival, the Sundance Institute, and he has made so many films worthy of second and third looks. In this movie in particular, it was a hit. It made over 100 million. So again, you start to do the inflation adjustment and all of that. It would have grossed over 200 if it had come out today with inflation and ticket prices. And just generally, inflation with 3% a year on average, it would still be a well over $200 million gross. So it was successful. But it hasn't been free on streaming very much, and it's just not talked about that often. There are other movies of that era a little bit below the radar, which have gotten greater hype. Like My Cousin Vinny. Sneakers made a lot more at the box office than My Cousin Vinny, but My Cousin Vinny somehow, in our estimation, is a kind of bigger, more important movie. Same thing with White Men Can't Jump, which was a bigger hit than My Cousin Vinny, but you look at the grosses, and Sneakers outgrossed both of them by a significant amount, but people talk about those movies more. They did the remake of White Men Can't Jump. Sucked. Don't hear anything about any remake of Sneakers. Now, they could remake this concept, but they couldn't exactly remake this movie because of the differences in technology. The actors are always, it's like they're all committed to the bit. And they manage to get exactly the right tone and the right balance of the silly and the serious. Because for all the laughing and for all the light moments where the characters, there's a lot of them just kind of hanging out seemingly, but there's always a sense of danger. The movie does a really good job of making us feel that they're not really just hanging out because they're going to die. They're all going to die. How are they going to get out of this? And let's just say the NSA agents aren't exactly who and what they seem to be. And we kind of have a feeling that this is not going to be as easy as all of that. And film features a really great cameo from no less than James Earl Jones. He shows up with about 5 minutes left in the movie, and his scene is great. And everyone's interaction with him is great. Because, if you're me, oh my God, it's Darth Vader. Darth Vader's here to negotiate. It's not really. But what we're left with when the movie ends, this is a film that leaves us lifted, in a good mood. It's not a conventional good guys win story, because every one of the members of Redford's team in some way is compromised, in some way has committed criminal acts, whether or not they thought they were justified. But even Redford's character, Martin Bishop, if the circumstances had been different, If it had been Cosmo who had to go out in the snowstorm, he's the one who would have been in prison for 20 years or however many years it was. But sometimes life, the sun even shines on a dog's ass some of the time. There are those moments where you think that you've gotten unlucky, and in fact, you haven't. And Redford at the beginning, my God, I'm going out, it's 10 degrees, it's snowing, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to freeze to death. Actually, no, I'm going to be able to live a normal life, and my best friend is going to prison. I thought I was unlucky, but I actually was lucky. And there is a theme of luck that runs through this movie. And there is a sense that the golden boy, Redford, he's just gotten really lucky. There's various moments in the movie where, well, if this happens, he's fine. A lot. But it never feels like the plot is moving in such a way just to keep him safe. Everything makes sense. There aren't the sorts of contortions of plot where you're scratching your head like, what the fuck is going on? And when we see what the black box can do, we understand why everyone wants it and why this is so important. Cliche city, it's important to keep it out of the wrong hands, whatever that means. And the movie kind of almost plays with that because James Earl Jones, if he's representing the government, says, well, we need to have it. Why do you need to have it? Well, we're the good guys. Oh, you are? Oh, I feel so much better knowing that you're the good guys. No, we're the good guys. Oh, we're the good. These kinds of, the kind of back and forth, absolute gold. The movie is never less than riveting. Once you get out of the first act and you start to see just how high the stakes are for everyone on the team, and you start questioning, okay, who are these guys? What's their goal here? What if they get the black box? How do they get out of this? And it's the kind of where the plot doesn't appear to be that twisty, but there doesn't seem to be much of a way for them to get out of it in one piece. And then you say, well, even if they survive, they're all going to go to jail, aren't they? Because now government knows who they are. That each of them, they're all on the run for one reason or another. But the movie figures out how to do it and to wrap up in a way that is satisfactory, because none of them they're not violent offenders. And in the events of the world of the story, you can say they've done their nation a great service. And when we think about Redford's character, there's no way to not smile. It's not one of Redford's most famous performances, or not even really one of his best performances. So I would say that his charm and the kind of gravitas that he brings to a role like this is worth its weight in gold. It's not something that you can learn in acting school, how to do what Redford does in this film. Not only leading a team, but leading a brilliant cast of great performers and taking the lead, but giving everyone on the cast moments to shine, especially River Phoenix, who has a couple of great moments in the third act. It's such a tragedy. What was he? Was he 21 when he died? Was he even that old? Just unbelievable. But it's a movie that is worth seeking out. It's worth, a couple of bucks on Amazon Prime or Apple. I've never been able to figure out why some people say that when they click on for a movie such as this, it says $3.59 to rent. And then another person tells me, yeah, Jared, it's $1.99 for me. I don't understand how that works. But this movie, if you like a good suspense film, thriller with a few laughs, and a really good-looking cast of people who are now a lot older, and at this time you say, man, Redford, good-looking dude. He's 53, 54? Yeah, he looks phenomenal. And Ben Kingsley kind of always looked older than his age. But you say to yourself, this is a really good movie. That's what the takeaway will be when it's over. I recommend this to anyone who, as I say, you like caper films, you like Ocean's 11, you like suspense, you like thrillers, you like a lot of twists, and not really sure how these characters are going to get out of this pickle. You will like this movie. Scout's Honor. Sneakers. Directed by Phil Alden Robinson, released in 1992, was actually released in the fall of 1992, starring Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier, River Phoenix, Dan Aykroyd, David Strathairn, and Sir Ben Kingsley. The 14th entry in our ongoing series of the best movie you've never seen. This has been episode 149 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for joining me here on this Wednesday, now evening in New York. But if you caught this episode on the YouTube channel, enjoyed it, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, and turn on those notifications. Or if you end up catching this episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, turn on those notifications. I'll be back with episode 150 real soon. Until then,